Okay, so I finally got both Yami and Charlotte. Honestly, I wasn't going to do a build guide because I was like, I'm not doing a build guide for one of these characters because one of these characters by themselves absolutely sucks. It is not worth it. But if you have both characters, they are halfway decent. So the build guide for these characters, the new Yami and the new Charlotte, is pretty much identical. It's pretty much the same for both of these characters, with the exception being that you might want to change your skill upgrade priority. That'd be the biggest difference. But other than that, the gear is pretty similar. The talents are pretty similar. I will say the talent stone and the support slot is a little bit different. I'll explain that as we go through it. But I'm going to do a dual build guide for this video. I don't think I've ever done this, but these two characters are literally make up one character. So it's just the way it is, okay? So we're going to start by going over their skills. We're going to go over their skill pages, their gear, what talents you want to run on them, whether or not they're actually worth enhancing, which, like, yes, you want to have them max duped and max skill page duped if you can, but, like, realistically, being that they are a dual unit, you have to have both of them done. As a free-to-play or a light spender, no, absolutely not. Do not waste your time. And then at the very end of the video, we will go over what teams they fit well on. So starting with the passive, it's similar for both of them. Upon becoming partnered with Swimsuit Yami, grants self and the partner mage sunbathing on the beach at the start of a wave. Sunbathing on the beach, if HP is equal to or lower than 30%, grants 90% lifesteal for 1 turn. Cool. Okay. And then the LR passives are kind of worth it, but we'll talk about those more when we get to the enhancing. And for skill 1, Thorn Sphere, if the partner mage has 4 or less SPs, grants self an SP plus 1 buff. If sunbathing on the beach is present on self, grants self a 30% increased speed buff for 1 turn. Skill 2 is actually pretty decent. It's an AoE skill. 100% chance to inflict mark on an enemy for 2 turns if you have it upgraded. Keep that in mind, otherwise it's not that high. And then if sunbathing on the beach is present on self, grants self and the partner mage a 30% increased attack buff for 2 turns. That's pretty good. That attack buff is solid. Her special skill, Blue Roses on the Beach, for each instance of continuous bleed damage that is inflicted on an enemy, attacks after granting a 45% increased damage dealt buff if Swimsuit Yami on the ally side is alive, and if Beach Training is not present on the partnered mage, grants the partnered mage Beach Training. And then for her combo skill, without Yami, 80% chance to inflict a mark on an enemy for 2 turns. If you upgrade it, becomes a 100% chance, which could be very, very good. So it is kind of worth upgrading that for that reason. And then her combo with Yami, inflicts mark on an enemy guaranteed for 2 turns, grants self and partner mage a 30% increased damage dealt buff for 2 turns. Like, that's honestly pretty solid. Their combo skill is really good because she gives that 30% damage, then he gives a boost as well to their attack. So it's really pretty solid. In general, upgrade priority, I would say skill 2, okay? And then I'd probably say special skill. And then maybe combo skill if you plan on trying to use this character without Yami because you want to upgrade that mark activation. You might want that combo skill upgraded over the special skill. But basically skill 2 first, probably special skill, maybe combo skill before special skill depending on what you want to do. Then your combo skill, then your skill 1 for upgrade priority on this character. Now switching over to Yami for skills and upgrade priority. Let's take a look at that.
Past your limits in the water.
So his passive is pretty similar to Charlotte's. Upon being partnered with Swimsuit Charlotte, grants self and the partner mage sunbathing on the beach. If Swimsuit Charlotte on the ally side dies, grant self Beach Training. Once per battle, Beach Training grants immortality for 1 turn if HP is equal to or lower than 30%. His skill 1. If the partner mage has 4 or more SPs, grants self an SP plus 1 buff. If Beach Training is present on self, inflicts continuous bleed damage on an enemy for 2 turns. His skill 2 is a single target attack. I wish it was a multi-target attack. It would have made him so much better. Inflicts continuous bleed damage on an enemy for 2 turns. If Beach Training is present on self, grants the partner mage a 20% increased mobility buff. This is actually really good because Charlotte is already one of the fastest attackers in the game, attacker mages in the game, so giving this increased mobility to her is actually fairly solid. Then his special skill, Summer Fun, Attacks after inflicting barrier removal on an enemy. If sunbathing on the beach is present on self, attacks after granting a defense penetration level 5 buff. Upon defeating an enemy, inflicts continuous bleed damage on all enemies for 2 turns. That continuous bleed damage is fairly good. I would recommend probably upgrading his special skill first for that reason. And then the combo skill, once again, if you upgrade it, you'll get a 100% chance to bleed if you're doing it without Charlotte. And then with Charlotte, you get the guaranteed bleed plus grant self and the partner mage an increased attack level 3 buff for 2 turns. So if you use Charlotte before Yami, because Charlotte is typically faster than Yami, and you use the combo skill with Charlotte, you're going to increase Yami's damage and attack by so much. So when he gets to his turn after Charlotte, he will be able to do his special skill and hopefully one-shot an enemy would be the idea, because he has the defense penetration. So that's why you would want to upgrade his special skill first. And then I would say it's kind of a toss-up between the combo skill and skill 2. I would say probably combo skill on him just to increase your damage with Charlotte when you go to do the combo skill. Then I would do skill 2 for upgrade priority, and then skill 1 on him. So it's a little bit different of an order, but that's fine. Now, in terms of skill pages for these 2 characters, they are pretty much going to be the same skill pages if you don't have their skill pages. So the options, I'll show you guys those first. The options include the generic breath skill page. They include any skill pages that increase damage or increase attack, right? Grants 12% increased damage dealt when HP is 50% or higher. You could also run other character skill pages like Leopold's right here. Grants an increased all attack buff proportionate to current max HP. That would be a solid option as well. Breath of Darkness is a really good option, like I was saying. So I have that one on Charlotte, all attack plus 16%. Those are all really good options if you lack their skill pages. Now, keep in mind, I'm going to go to the summon menu. If you have their skill pages, it can be very beneficial for you because you get the additional effect on skill 2 with Charlotte, for example, of inflicting continuous bleed damage on an enemy for 2 turns, which is really good. And then upon attacking, if the enemy is taking continuous bleed damage, there is a 55% chance to attack after granting a 10% increased damage dealt buff. So it's just more damage for Charlotte and you get a bleed. Like, her skill page is the best you can probably equip on her, so if you get it, that's great. For Yami, the additional effect on his skill 2, once again, if an enemy is taking 2 or more instances of continuous bleed damage, which they would get that from Charlotte and Yami working together to bleed enemies, grant self and the partner mage an SP plus 2 buff when he uses skill 2. That makes skill 2 infinitely better because it is only a single target skill, so that makes his skill 3 actually halfway decent. And then upon attacking, if an enemy is taking continuous bleed damage, grants a 5% increased speed buff for 2 turns. That gives him a little bit more speed, but it's not that big of a deal for that particular reason. But I do think that SP plus 2 is very, very good for Yami as well. But just in general, if you don't have either of their skill pages, then you're going to be wanting to put damage skill pages on them that allow them to do more damage. Now, as for gear, I have pretty much the same gear setup for both of these characters. You can build it this way. You can also build it another way with 3 gear sets if you wanted to go for like attack, speed, and maybe a little bit of defense on them to help them survive, or maybe another speed set. Realistically, like I would go for the another speed set to give Charlotte more speed in her particular case. That'd probably be better for her, but I do think this is probably the best build you can go for on Charlotte and Yami, and it's pretty similar because you have an attack set, you have a mobility set, and then you also have all these extra pieces for more substats. The more pieces you can fit in here, the more substats you can have when you transcend the pieces, and the more you can increase your overall stats right here. So in general, what you're going to go for is you're going to go for an attack stat on the main slot of all of these pieces if you can, because you want them to do as much damage as possible. That is for both Yami and Charlotte. They are both attack type characters, not magic attack characters, so keep that in mind. And then when you are building these characters and you're re-rolling your subslots, you're going to want to go for crit rate and crit damage first and foremost. And then if you can, I recommend like attack percentage / accuracy. Both of those things are pretty good. But I would say crit rate and crit damage are going to be like the top 2 that you're looking for. Like this is a pretty good piece right here. The only thing I would change is I wish I had an attack percentage right here. And then this would be like the ideal piece of gear. So both characters, and I'll show you Yami too, look very similar right here. And what do I mean when I say sets? We have gold sets here, a gold attack set and a gold mobility set. For anyone that's newer to the game, I know this can be confusing. You have attack, defense, HP, mobility. These are all your sets right here. Any set with a gold star is going to be a gold set, and typically gold sets are going to have better stats for your character than regular sets. So try to equip gold sets when you can when you're building your characters. And really quickly, let me scroll down to Yami. So you guys can see that he is also running a very similar build. I just don't have a accessory right there on him, but yeah, very similar build. As you can see, same sets, attack on all of them, going for crit rate and crit damage where I could. I started to run out of like the reroll stones where I could actually hold on to certain things, so I had to compromise on some stuff here on Yami, but crit rate, crit damage, and eventually I'll work on transcending all these pieces, and he'll be much higher in battle power. But for just getting him today, I would say this isn't too bad in general. And then in terms of enhancement, are these characters worth enhancing? If you're a whale, absolutely. If you're not a whale, I mean, like, no, because you have to have both of them to even make them effective, which is a bit rough. So at 2 dupes, grants 50% increased damage dealt upon attacking a defender enemy. That's going to be really good for Yami, right? And then at 5 dupes, you get that same effect. And then at the start of a turn, if a debuff is not present on self, grants a 30% increased all attack buff for 1 turn. So if you do decide you want to go for dupes on these characters at all, I recommend at least going for 2, but I don't think 5 is as necessary. But that extra damage could be super, super helpful, especially with Yami right there. And then on Charlotte, if we look at her enhancement page, when you get to 2 dupes, upon being attacked by a defender, grants an attacker ally a 30% reduced damage taken buff for 2 turns, so that'll help keep Yami alive. I wish it gave him more damage because that would be sick, but unfortunately it doesn't. So I don't think it's as necessary for Charlotte as it is for Yami. I think it's better to get Yami to 2 dupes, but still. And then additionally, if you get her to 5 dupes, at the start of a wave, grants self and the partner mage debuff immunity for 2 turns. So there's that, so you don't have to worry about like losing speed or anything like that, which could be useful having her at 5 dupes, honestly, but I just don't know. I don't think it's really all that worth it. Now, in terms of talents for these characters, pretty much exactly the same on the talent tree, with the exception of the support slot. So for the attack tree, you're going to go for damage dealt, and crit damage typically is what I would go for. You could go for other builds. You don't necessarily have to go for that. You could go for the increasing crit rate, and you could go for the attack, but I do think more damage is always better, so I'm going for the crit damage and damage dealt in general. I think that's better. Now, as for the defense tree, I would just go defense plus 20% and grants defense plus 4%. You could go for debuff immunity on Yami right here, because if Charlotte dies and then he gets that immortality, that debuff immunity could be useful to him. But in general, both characters are pretty much going to be benefiting more from having the increased defense and the endurance. And then on the support tree, I would go for Charlotte, the decreased skill 2 cooldown. For Yami, on the other hand, I would not. I would go for the grants SP plus 1 upon having less than 2 SPs, because Charlotte benefits more from her skill 2, Yami benefits more from his special skill. So this is how it would look for Charlotte. And if I rotate this, this is how it would look for Yami. Now, as for the stone that goes in for Charlotte, I would go for speed here. You do not necessarily have to do that for Yami. It's not going to hurt him, but it is very, very ideal to have a speed plus 2 stone on Charlotte right there. As for the stone I have here, I just have defense. You can really do anything for the defense one. Attack one, probably crit rate, crit damage, something like that to give you maybe more attack. Really, it doesn't matter all that much for the stones. Like I think on Yami, I probably put crit damage. I'd have to look.
It's time to push past your limits in the water.
I did put crit damage. So crit damage is nice on Yami because that's just going to help him do his one shot a little bit better. So that's probably what I would go for the stone on both characters, but very similar talent builds, as you can see. Like I said, with the exception of this just being a little bit different on the support talent tree. So that is both characters and how I would build them. Now let's talk about the teams that they can be run on, and all the teams I'm going to show you guys are them run together because they need to be ran together to be actually halfway decent. So the first team, and I've tried this out a little bit in Arena, and I kind of like this team because you have these two doing pretty good damage. You have Dorothy for all the stuff that she does, and then you have Vanessa for the immortality, the healing, the protection, all the stuff that she can offer to the team. The one downside to this is it's not a mono red team, so keep that in mind. I mean, it would feel good to run a mono red team. I'll show you guys a mono red team here in a second, but this team just in general works very well. I think Dorothy is a very good character to run alongside both of these characters with everything that Dorothy does, because Dorothy is just exceptional in everything that she does with inflicting the nightmare, the silence, everything that Nightmare does, right? And you can read it over here. Pause the video if you need to read what Nightmare does. But yeah, reduce mobility, all that good stuff, allowing your characters to move faster than the enemy team. Very solid. You could also potentially, Switch out this Vanessa for like the purple Vanessa. If you ever leveled up, that could be another option you could run. Running Dorothy and purple Vanessa together with these two characters could be halfway decent. Another option would be to run Dorothy with Mimosa, like you see right here. Mimosa more for healing and the resurrect in case one of your attackers dies, because these two need each other, so having that resurrect is like almost essential. So this is another very good team option. And then last but not least, we have the red team right here. This slot, I was honestly like, who the crap is the fourth red character that'd be halfway decent right here? I kind of put Real here because of the speed idea, that fact that Charlotte is so fast as an attacker, just speed up and, you know, but like honestly, I don't know. I think maybe red Asta would be a little bit better right here. I don't know who that last slot is to make an all red team. I'm not going to lie to you. Let me know if you guys have an idea for how to make the perfect red team with these characters, but I think it's just hard to do. In general, though, these two characters work very well with Dorothy. So those are the teams I would try out in Arena. Let me know if you guys try them out. Let me know if you like them. And if you guys enjoyed the video, please consider going down there, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, and thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.